Hello, everyone. This is Corsair Mack, owner and clinician of Mack's Empowerment Counseling LLC. And today we're going over a requested video of consent for minors in mental health counseling. So sit back, relax, take everything I say with a grain of salt, do your own research, and enjoy the video. So, what is a minor? Technically, a minor is someone under the age of 18, though there are states that give minors that are 17 special permissions than other states. And we're going to take a look to see if Illinois is one of those states. So, what we're going to do, we're going to take a look at the legislation and see, in regards to consent, what can minors do and not do. So, let's get into it. Alrighty, so what we're going to take a look at is the Mental Health and Development Disabilities Code, 405 ILCS 5-, and this is basically going to let us know about minors and consent. So let's get into it. All right, so here we are, 405 ILCS 5, Chapter 3, Art VA, basically rights of a minor to consent to counseling services or psychotherapy on an outpatient basis. All right, so minors 12 years of age or older request to receive counseling services or psychotherapy on an outpatient basis. All right, so any minor 12 years of age or older may request and receive counseling services or psychotherapy on an outpatient basis. The consent of a minor's parents, guardian, or person in loco parentis shall not be necessary to authorize outpatient counseling services or psychotherapy. However, until the consent of the minor's parents, guardian, or person in loco parentis has been obtained, outpatient counseling services or psychotherapy provided to a minor under the age of 17 shall be initially limited to not more than 8 90-minute sessions. The services provided shall consider the factors contained in subsections A1 of this section throughout the therapeutic process to determine, through consultation with the minor, whether attempting to obtain the consent of a parent, guardian, or person in loco parentis would be detrimental to the minor's well-being. No later than the 8th session, the services provider shall determine and share with the minor the services provider's decision as described below. All right, 1. If the service provider finds that attempting to obtain consent will not be detrimental to the minor's well-being, the provider shall notify the minor that the consent of a parent, guardian, or person in loco parentis is required to continue counseling services or psychotherapy. 2. If the minor does not permit the service provider to notify the parent, guardian, or person in loco parentis for the purpose of consent after the 8th session, the service provider shall discontinue counseling services or psychotherapy and shall not notify the parent, guardian, or person in loco parentis about the counseling services or psychotherapy. 3. If the minor permits the service provider to notify the parent, guardian, or person in loco parentis for the purpose of consent without discontinuing counseling services or psychotherapy, the service provider shall make reasonable attempts to obtain consent. The service provider shall document each attempt to obtain consent in the minor's clinical record. The service provider may continue to provide counseling services or psychotherapy without the consent of the minor's parent, guardian, or person in loco parentis if A. The service provider has made at least 2 unsuccessful attempts to contact the minor's parent, guardian, or person in loco parentis to obtain consent, and B. The service provider has obtained the minor's written consent. All right, so 4. If after the 8th session, the service provider of counseling services or psychotherapy determines that obtaining consent would be detrimental to the minor's well-being, the service provider shall consult with his or her supervisor when possible to review and authorize the determination under subsection A of the section. The service provider shall document the basis for the detrimentation in the minor's clinical record and may then accept the minor's written consent to continue to provide counseling services or psychotherapy without also obtaining the consent of a parent, guardian, or person in loco parentis. All right, 5. If the minor continues to receive counseling services or psychotherapy without the consent of a parent, guardian, or person in loco parentis beyond 8 sessions, the service provider shall evaluate in consultation with his or her supervisor when possible. His or her determination under this subsection A and review the determination of every 60 days until counseling services or psychotherapy ends or the minor reaches age 17. If it is determined appropriate to notify the parent, guardian, or person in loco parentis and the minor's consent, the service provider shall proceed under paragraph 3 of subsection A of this section. 6. When counseling services or psychotherapy are related to allegations of neglect, sexual abuse, or mental or physical abuse by the minor's parent, guardian, or person in loco parentis, obtaining consent of that parent, guardian, or person in loco parentis shall be presumed to be detrimental to the minor's well-being. A-1. Each of the following factors must be present in order for the service provider to find that obtaining the consent of a parent, guardian, or person in loco parentis will be detrimental to the minor's well-being. 1. Requiring the consent or notification of a parent, guardian, or person in loco parentis would cause the minor to reject the counseling services or psychotherapy. 2. The failure to provide the counseling services or psychotherapy would be detrimental to the minor's well-being. 3. The minor has knowingly and voluntarily sought the counseling services or psychotherapy. And 4. In the opinion of the service provider, the minor is mature enough to participate in counseling services or psychotherapy productively. All right, then we get to A2. The minor's parents, guardian, or person in loco parentis shall not be informed of the counseling service or psychotherapy without the written consent of the minor unless the service provider believes the disclosure is necessary under subsection A of the section. If the facility director or service provider intends to disclose the fact of counseling services or psychotherapy, the minor shall be so informed, and if the minor chooses to discontinue counseling services or psychotherapy after being informed of the decision of the facility director or service provider to disclose the fact of counseling services or psychotherapy to the parent, guardian, or person in loco parentis, then the parent, guardian, or person in loco parentis shall not be notified. Under the Mental Health and Development Disabilities Confidentiality Act, the facility director has his or her designee, or the service provider shall not allow the minor's parent, guardian, or person in loco parentis upon request to inspect or copy the minor's records or any part of the record if the service provider finds that there are compelling reasons for denying the access. Nothing in this section shall be interpreted to limit a minor's privacy and confidentiality protections under state law. All right, the minor's parent, guardian, or person in loco parentis shall not be liable for the cost of outpatient counseling services or psychotherapy which is received by the minor without the consent of the minor's parent, guardian, or person in loco parentis. C. Counseling services or psychotherapy provided under this section shall be provided in compliance with the Professional Counselor and Clinical Professional Counselor Licensing and Practice Act, the Clinical Social Work and Social Work Practice Act, or the Clinical Psychologist Act. All right, so let's go into this next part because I just want to reiterate the B portion. So the minor's parent, guardian, or person in loco parentis shall not be liable for the cost of outpatient counseling services or psychotherapy which is received by the minor without the consent of that parent. So that's something to really keep in mind of when considering this. Okay, now let me see if there's anything else important to note, and if not, we can go on to my final thoughts. Alrighty, everybody, so here are my final thoughts. Ultimately, yes, I agree it is good that children 12 to 16 are able to seek therapy without the consent of their parents, just in case their parents are basically resistant to having their kids go to therapy, because ultimately this gives the kids the ability to not only advocate for themselves, but also take care of themselves mentally. So true, it is only 8 sessions for 90 minutes per session, though if the therapist sees that there's a benefit, then they can continue the sessions without notifying the parents if harm or anything like that is in play. Though there is a clause in there that shows that parents are not liable to pay for the therapy sessions. So there you go. Those are the facts. And if you're asking for inpatient, I believe that 16 and older can sign themselves into inpatient without the parents' knowledge, though I believe that there may or may not be, depending on the company, they would have to notify somebody. All right, but other than that, that's about it. Thank you guys very much for watching. If you're interested in checking out any of my other videos, feel free to look on my YouTube channel. If you are interested in reading any of my blogs, feel free to go to mackec.com to read any of them. And also, if you're interested in scheduling an appointment, feel free to go to Mack EC as well. Or if you're interested in me covering any other topics, go to Mack EC as well. Or you can email me at mackcounselinginfo@mackec.com. Or you can give me a call at 224-407-5019. All right, thank you guys very much. Have a great rest of your day. Take care.